Dylan, want to talk about disability language if possible.
Okay. Yep, hit me.
Came across a couple of weeks ago, Christina Applegate, the actress or actor, took to socials as she was getting ready for a big first public appearance since being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis last year.
Christina Applegate, give me some shows. I can't. I'm trying to.
Christina Applegate. Anchorman.
That's right. Thank you. That's Amelia Stamos, our amazing producer in the background there.
Yep.
Great
Will
voice.
Ferrell's love interest in Anchorman.
Yep, well done.
She put up a photo of 5 walking sticks and she said, thank you to @Neo Walk Sticks for these beauties. Stay tuned to see which ones I pick for a week of stuff. I saw the news article where I first came across this, and thanks to this podcast, it's one of Australia's biggest online news platforms, I stopped and recognized ableism. But I wanted to see if my friends did in my WhatsApp group. So I screenshot the article and I just said to my mates, anybody see any problem with this? And some of them were just like nitpicking, little bits and pieces, advertisement on the site, etc. They were incorrect. No one could understand that the language was ableist. And I'm going to read out exactly what they've done as their headline for this story, which was just based off her tweet. Star's sad career update amid health battle. The subheading, Christina Applegate has shared a crushing update about the future of her acting amid her intense battle with multiple sclerosis. Now, how do we feel about disability language there? Am I right in calling that out?
I mean, if we were an R-rated podcast, I'd be swearing and saying effing oath. Because, I mean, mate, like, if you are already adding to the unconscious bias that being disabled is a crushing blow, and it is sad, what are we telling society? You know what I mean? So, I mean, that stuff makes it just makes it so much harder to normalize disability when that is the normal. They are projecting that as normal, that disability is bad, devastating, her acting career is over thing, which is just BS. But it becomes real if a lot of people think that, because that becomes the reality. You know what I mean?
So I went and just Googled how best to approach disability language. And of course, there isn't one box that ticks all, but this is from the NPR, and the article is written by people with disability. It says how to talk about disability sensitively and avoid ableist tropes. So I thought I'd share some of the pointers in the article, which was identifying when meeting somebody whether they prefer person first, aka a woman with autism, versus identity first, an autistic woman. Now, we know that those preferences, we learnt about that with our episode very early on with Prue Stevenson, because she was the first person that ever brought to my mind, my life, about identity first language. So there's something that you can do at an introduction. Also, I didn't know about this one. Infantilization. Have you heard of language being used around that, Dill?
Well, give me an example.
Well, the example is talking to people with disability who maybe are nonverbal as children.
Oh, yeah. That's like going, I get that. Like, are you going to be okay, my friend? Are you all right? Like that. And you're like, yeah, I'm sweet. You know what I mean? So I think they really, because there is an assumption that all people with disability might need that to be talked to in that way. Yeah, I still, mate, that still actually happens to me sometimes, which is crazy. You know what I mean? So
Rosemary McDonald Harita, who's one of the authors with disability, defines infantilization as a non-disabled person having more power than a disabled person and using that power against them to invalidate their thoughts, opinions, or experiences. This can show up in numerous ways, such as indirectly speaking to a disabled person or assuming that the individual can't advocate or speak for themselves. Another example comes from Cara Reedy, the director and founder of Disabled Journalists Association, and this is the language that she's using as well, please, just to note. She says that as a dwarf, she's experienced situations where people would raise their voice or speak to her as though she were a baby. So just be aware, everybody. I mean, hopefully people listening to this podcast already don't need to know this, but always good to have education from people with lived experience. And then the best practices when talking about disability, which is centre disabled voices, which we hope is exactly what this podcast does, giving those people with lived experience the chance to share their story on their terms and also not take it out of context, right? Because Christina Applegate shared her story on her Twitter, and then somebody's grabbed that and taken it out of context and used their own sort of adjectives to describe the situation, which she doesn't do herself. Recognizing that disability is a culture and identity, not a problem. The article says the medical model says that disabled people have to be fixed, or there's inherently something wrong with us. There should be science, and we should all aim to have a. There should be more science, and we should all aim to have a cure or live more normal. I guess the sort of language that people might use without even realizing they're being ableist is like, "Oh, did you try rehab?" Chucking out those small comments of, "Oh, is there medication to fix that?" They obviously think like you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I never consulted a doctor." It's like, "Oh, a physio. I never thought about that." So I guess that's sort of that language, right? Which you deal with a bit.
I think, and the biggest two tips I can give is one, don't overcomplicate it. Just be a normal person, right? Like, don't freak out. Like, what am I going to do? And secondly, you nailed it with that first one. People always go, "I'm in a wheelchair," correct? Do you want me to stand up, or do you want me to bob down when I talk to you? Do you want me to use this language? Do you want to just ask the person, because everybody is different, right? There is if someone comes up to me in the street and goes, "Can I get a photo with you?" And they freak out as soon as they say it. They go, "What do I go, you're allowed to just say to any person with disability, 'Hey, I'm David. Do you want me to bob down when I talk to you or not?' I go, 'Nah, Dave, you can stay standing up.'" And Dave's like, "Sweet." You know what I mean? Like, and that is a really good way to initially break down some of those, I guess, awkwardness that the able-bodied community might feel towards that, for sure. And that is that's listening to lived experience.
Of course. And the final note, which I liked, was do research beforehand. Ableist language is so intertwined with our culture, we don't even realize we're using it. Most people understand that if you're working on something, you're going to make mistakes, but you have to start. The refusal to even address it, that's the most harmful thing, says Carly Reedy.
And exactly right. And guess what? Even if you haven't done too much research and you do try and engage, you might get it wrong. And that's okay as well. You know what I mean? Do you know what the worst thing you can do is? Not integrate and get involved and work with people with disability in your social life, employment life, whatever, because of a timidness to get it wrong. And that means you accidentally then indirectly discriminate by leaving them out because you don't want to offend. That's actually the worst thing to do as well, because then you don't get full inclusion. So yeah, don't stress too much if something goes wrong. The same way, Angus, if you go say to someone else in the street is able-bodied, you might get it wrong too. You know what I mean? So it's all relative.
Thank you very much for listening to this bonusode, everyone. The full article is in the link below. I will see you on the next Monday. Until then, enjoy summer.
We hope so. You better subscribe, because then you'll get them straight to your pocket, from your pocket.
That's my podcast company. Thanks, Dylan, for the drop.